It is time for a League Battle deck. Now, as always in these videos, I have to give a little disclaimer. And yes, this is the Gardevoir EX, which is also kind of the Mew deck as well. Just a small disclaimer. I am not an expert on the TCG. I don't really play the card game that much. At least not as much as I used to. So if you're here for a thorough and precise examination of this deck, the cards that you want, the cards that you don't, things you want to change out, you've come to the wrong place. This is for entertainment. I will be examining the deck and kind of getting like my first look, like examination of it, but I'm not a pro by any means. If you actually play the TCG, like actively, then you're gonna know more than I will by looking at this deck. Anyways, we have our condition marker. Then we have a little advertisement, just basically breaking the deck down a little bit, and a interesting little thing of how to upgrade the battle deck, and it's actually recommending certain cards to add. But we're going to take this back out. And first off, we have a code card for the deck. Then we have the deck box itself, which we'll be looking at here in a minute. And we have one of these, which I think I only have one of, maybe two. It's a pretty neat, actually I think they redesigned it a bit. Interesting. It's a pretty neat little dice holder for this deck's dice. I believe these League Battle decks are the only ones that they do that with. But pretty nice looking dice here, along with our, main D6. Not too bad. But you can just put them all in the box, fold it up, and... oh, if I can. Oh, okay, so that does go all the way in. That, and yeah, pretty neat little dice holder. But take this piece of plastic out, and we can get to the featured cards of this deck. Starting off with the Gardevoir EX itself, Psychic Embrace. As often as you would like during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy card from your discard pile to one of your Psychic Pokemon. If you attached energy to a Pokemon in this way, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. You can't use this ability on a Pokemon that would be knocked out. Interesting. So as many times as you would like during your turn, you can do that. So you can attach cards from your discard to a Pokemon, has to be Psychic, obviously. But then they also take, 2 damage counters, so what is that, 20 damage? I honestly don't know how much I would actually want to be using that ability, but I assume that that has a huge part of this deck's strategy. Interesting. But then Miracle Force. This Pokemon recovers from all special conditions and deals 190 damage. But this is the focal point of the deck, and there are 3 of them. So, yeah, obviously that's going to be like a huge point of this deck, so maybe it's just not in my playstyle. Then, oops, we have the Mew EX with Restart. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. Not terrible. And then Genome Hacking. We have choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon attacks and use it as this attack. Interesting. I assume that this card can be like a hard counter for certain decks by being able to use one of their abilities against them. But then we have the Luminion V. When you play this, I remember this one actually being important in a deck that I had tried. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle your deck. It's a pretty neat ability proc, because it's going to be, it'll proc basically by itself. You don't really have to think about using it. But then whenever you do put something on the bench, you get that benefit. But then you have the Aqua Return. Shuffle this Pokemon and all attached energy cards into your deck. So if it's about to go out on its next turn, you can just do 120 damage and just see ya. And then, you have a chance of using it again later. So then we have the Radiant Greninja, which of course is something that I've seen used in a good number of decks. And of course you can't have more than 1 Radiant. Concealed cards. You must discard an energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Interesting. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards. Okay, so you can just draw an extra 2 cards, which is actually pretty huge, but you have to sacrifice an energy every time. And then Moonlit Shuriken. Discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. That's not too bad, I'd say. God, you're gonna need a lot of energy. I'm guessing that concealed cards is the reason that people use this a lot, and not so much because of Moonlight Shuriken. It's not bad. You can strike the bench with it and, hit 2 things at once with 90 damage, but I don't know. Because it takes 3 energy to even get to that point, and then you have to discard 2. So if anything, you want them stacked before you put them in the active slot. I don't know how to feel about it. This deck is not screaming to me as something that I would want to use. But then we have the deck box right here, which doesn't look too bad. But of course, I still would prefer if I actually told you what was in this deck. But, cool. I would still prefer if it was like, this is the Gardevoir EX deck. Like, just somewhere on the box. Anyways, we have a Drifloon, Gust for 10 damage and Balloon Blast for 30x. This attack does 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Interesting, so the more damaged it is. So I guess you could throw 2 energy on it using Gardevoir's ability. And, in the process, you would be dealing 10 damage. So that'd be 2 counters. Well, 20 damage, which is 2 counters. So you'd be doing 60. Okay. So 2 Drifloons, 3 Drifloons. Then we have Lono. Each player shuffles the hand back and puts it in the bottom of their deck. Yeah. We've seen that before. 4 of those. Okay. Professor's Research, of course, is the refresh your hand. Much better than that one ability. Then Arvin, search your deck for an item card and a tool card. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, then you have to shuffle your deck after revealing them. So again, more deck cycling. Switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active slot. Yeah, but I will say that sounds like another card. Yeah, it's just boss's orders. I didn't read the name. I just saw the artwork and didn't think about it. Of course, you have Jack to get 2 evolution Pokemon. Only 1 Jack. Artizone. Once during your each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a basic Pokemon that doesn't have a roll box and put it onto their bench. Then that player shuffles their deck. So it has to be basic and it can't have a roll box. So it's an interesting ability to use, but you're giving the same thing to your opponent with that stadium. And I've seen a lot of stadiums where they're situationally useful, so it'd probably only be useful to you and not to your opponent, depending. This one feels like it could pretty much always benefit your opponent as well. We have the Nest Ball, of course, to search for a basic. We have 4 of those. Ultra Ball, again. You have to discard 2 cards from your hand, but if you do, you can search for any Pokemon. Yeah, of course, yep, 4 of those. Then we have Rare Candy. Choose one of your basic Pokemon and play. If you have a Stage 2 card in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put that card into the basic Pokemon to evolve it. Skipping the Stage 1, you can't use this card during your first turn or in a basic Pokemon, so basically this acts as your Stage 1. Got it. 3 Rare Candies. Then we have the Super Rod. Shuffle up to 3 in any combination of your Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. And Bravery Charm. The basic Pokemon this card attached to gets plus 50 HP. Could be useful if your Gardevoir is going to be dealing damage to it to give it energies. So there's 3 there. Then we have a handful of energy before we actually get to some Sword and Shield cards with the Kirlia. Refinement. You must discard a card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards. God, so even with all of their Pokemon, they're also focusing on deck cycling in this. This is like a very... Like, every deck in Pokemon anymore is just deck cycling. That's like 90% of it. This deck feels especially so, like, to a wild degree. Like, the fact that you're even selecting your Pokemon based on, can I cycle more cards? Then we have Ralts, Memory Skip. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks. During your opponent's next turn, that Pokemon can't attack it. You're also using your opponents against themselves, because you're using things like this to prevent them from using their own attacks, or stealing their attacks from them and using it against them. Kind of interesting. And finally, we have a Cresselia to end us off. For a basic at 120 health, it's not bad. Moonglow Reverse. Move 2 damage counters from each of your Pokemon onto one of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay. Could be a good combo with that Gardevoir. Because it's exactly 2 damage counters. So you can use Gardevoir's ability to damage one of your people to give it energies. And then just go, no, I don't want these, and move them over to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And then for only 3 energy, being 110 damage is certainly not bad, but it is a no-effect ability, being Lunar Blast. Not a bad deck. I can't really formulate in my brain how I would properly use this. I think it's probably one of the first decks that we've done where I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not certain as to what I would actually be able to pull off with this deck. It's interesting, I'll say that much. But with our Gardevoir at the front and our description of the deck at the back, we can throw it into its deck box, where it can go live with all of the others. But now it is time for the bonus card of the day, explanation right down there. And pulling the card from the back, we actually have another code card. These are probably used, feel free if you want to try it. But the code cards are actually here to represent the art pieces that my girlfriend makes, so allow me to grab one. Yep, this is another favorite of mine that she made. This is the Hollow Slowbro. Now, using resin to pop up parts of the card to add more depth and detail. And you can really see the amount added. Like popping up each of these individual things coming off of the sun itself, of course, Slowbro himself, and being more raised in certain spots than others, as you would probably expect. It's just a really interesting way to add depth to cards, especially hollows. I feel like it does a lot for the hollows. Yeah, you can even see like the faint lines like drawn in, like back here, like in the skyline on the clouds. Because like, you know, you don't want to raise those as much, and like these little like twirly bits. You don't want to raise those up as much as they are a part of the actual background, so they're not supposed to stand out. But I'd say it's a pretty cool looking card. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, all of that fun stuff. I don't remember what the last deck I did was. Was it the Melmetal deck? I don't remember. Whatever it was, I will link that one on the screen, and I'm going to have a playlist of all of my Pokemon videos if you feel like binging. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed, and hopefully I will see all of you next time. Goodbye for now.